Hello, everybody, and welcome to Responsible AI in Action with the Responsible AI Institute, where we are speaking with some of the leading voices in responsible AI. I am very excited. We have Cansu Canca joining us today. Cansu, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me, Patrick. Thank you.
I'm very excited to have you here. I've been following your work for some time now and have been very inspired by what you're doing in the responsible AI space and in the responsible tech space in general. You are really working at this problem in a variety of different avenues and in a variety of different aspects. You are, of course, the founder and director of the AI Ethics Lab, the director of responsible AI practice at the Institute for Experiential AI, and a research associate professor in philosophy at Northeastern University. And I really love this background because you interact with a lot of philosophers and computer scientists. And I'm wondering if you could share with us what that interaction is like. Why is philosophy so important in how we develop and use technology, and more specifically in how we use AI?
Yeah, this is a question that we are not discussing enough, so I'm glad that you asked. When we talk about AI ethics, what we are fundamentally asking, the core of the questions are always an ethical question, meaning a philosophical question. And how this is not realized, acknowledged, recognized as much. We expect answers from multiple disciplines, but oftentimes people forget that the question of what is the right thing to do or what is the right policy to enact is a philosophical question. And the answers require the tools that are developed, that have been developed in the moral and political philosophy for over 2 millennia. So we are well equipped in philosophy. Two, there is no way that you can answer this normative question without engaging with the philosophy, with broader sense of like, what are the tools that we have? What are the literature that we have? What are the philosophical traditions that we have? All of these come into play when we ask this seemingly simple question, what is the right thing to do? And in a way, it's not very different from other applied ethics areas. AI ethics is not the first time that we are using all of this literature to make a concrete decision. I always give the example of the pandemic. Like during the pandemic, we asked so many questions related to who should be prioritizing giving vaccination? What should be the policy? What should be the policy around lockdown versus, opening slowly the market and the transportation and so on? All of these questions, who should get the ICU bed? All of these questions are ethical questions. Life and death matter, ethical question. And we, philosophers, applied ethicists, we work on these questions, no matter how complex. So that doesn't mean, of course, we work alone. There is nothing that we can do if we are just left to our own devices, like contained in only the philosophical literature, because applied ethics in the end is putting philosophy into action in a discipline. So if you're asking a public health question, you better know all the relevant data, meaning the social impact, the information you would get from social sciences, like the social impact, the psychological impact, how organizations behave, like what kind of a policy would even make sense and could be like enacted. All of the literature of like more descriptive and scientific literature come into play when you are trying to answer this, what is the right thing to do? And in AI ethics, that literature, that the non-philosophical literature comes from, again, social sciences, as well as computer science, as well as design and policy. So I have a team that has philosophers and computer scientists, and we engage with the broader academic team of, policy scholars, designers, design scholars, so that we can bring in all this expertise in play. As I said, when we answer the seemingly simple questions like what is the right thing to do in any of these given situations, ranging from social media to privacy-related questions. It's a long answer. I'm sorry, Patrick.
No, please don't apologize. I could listen to you on and on about this because you make some really important points. When it comes to AI development or the use of AI, it really does require a multidisciplinary approach because this type of technology is impacting everybody. And to take it back to the roots of philosophy with who we are as human beings and how do we interact with one another in the world. And I know that's a big interest of mine, is just how, as humanity, do we interact with this technology? It's really important to ask those philosophical questions, but then I also love how you add to ask those questions so that we could then implement it practically as well. I think this relates big time to this news article that came out recently from CNBC. They put out an article about big tech's enthusiasm for AI-powered robots and how they think they can solve a lot of the global labor shortage. So they say, there's major tech companies like Tesla, Amazon, and Microsoft that are heavily investing in humanoid robots. And with recent advances in AI, particularly in language processing and decision making, it's renewed this optimism for the potential of these humanoid robots. But mass adoption is still many years away. So going off of our conversation, what do you believe are the philosophical implications of this? How might the widespread adoption of humanoid robots impact our understanding of humanity? And given the potential for these robots to replace human workers in many fields, I'm wondering what are the ethical considerations to consider to guide the development and deployment of these emerging AI technologies?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for asking this question in a way that is different from most people's. After you described the news article, most people would go and say, what do you think is going to be the impact? And I always have to say, I'm not a social scientist. That's why I consult to social scientists asking, what do you think will be the impact, so that we can think about the ethical aspects of the impact, right? So assuming, given that I don't do the work around labor, I don't do work around, predicting the social implications, but the philosophical question that you asked, I think is super interesting and super important. And again, philosophically interested with huge practical implications. So I'm going to take it a little broader, actually, Patrick. So the way that they are, the conversation around reskilling, upskilling, job displacements, all of these mass unemployment, all of this bigger work/AI conversation is going around, I think, these very narrow paths. What is the immediate impact on certain work jobs? What is the immediate impact of the robots, or what is the immediate impact on development of robots? Which are all interesting questions. But then we cannot really jump from this question to these questions to what should be the policy. Because here's the thing that I think we need to acknowledge. The change is big. The change that we are experiencing is really massive. And it is going to continue to be so. So this is not really a prediction. This is already the existing situation continuing to develop as it does. So given that massive change, I think the question that we should be asking is, how should we think about work? How should we think about jobs in relation to our identity, in relation to what we do, in relation to life as a general thing? And when I say it like this, it sounds like, the fluffy, philosophical, abstract conversation. But it is important, because we often forget that the way that the workplace and the work rhythm is structured is quite recent in history. We weren't always in closed space looking at screens most of the day, or being in artificially lit up rooms for most of our lives, going in masses into buildings and leaving in masses the building. So the way that we are operating is quite recent and in alignment with the industrial revolution that we had. So we keep trying to say, okay, this 40-hour work week, how can we make sure that people keep that? Even if some jobs become allocated to AI, how can we make sure that the work as it is remains, and we reskill people to fill their quota in a way? And I think the bigger question to ask is, what kind of a wealth and economic benefits are we expecting from AI? And in what kind of human work is required to get that benefit? And looking at these numbers, obviously predictive numbers, what is it? What kind of a life are we imagining? What is the need? So once we know that, we can now ask the other questions, like, how should a work week look like? Is it 40 hours? Is it 10 hours? If it is 10 hours, what should humans do? Like, what should we do with our time? And again, I really encourage us not to just say, what other job can we do? Well, there are different ways of engaging with the world, engaging with each other, engaging with society, as it has been in centuries before in the human history, right? So that would require a different way of education. That would require a different way of policymaking. That would require simple things like this has this, again, big abstract, like fluffy sounding question has implications of how do we design the taxes going forward? Like very, very concrete, very boring question, a policy question, but you better know where you are heading, what kind of a life we are designing for all of us in the world, so that we know how to tax and who to tax, for example.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're speaking my language. It's so important. And I love how you bring up that the questions around, as you were discussing, the future of work as an example, how do we as humans fill up this time and thinking about how this AI technology is going to impact our way of life, our way of being beyond just, what we do in the day to day, like how does that compound over time? And it's really important to have this sort of, or rather, it's important to have this philosophical point of view when creating these technologies. And to also, and this is why I really value the work that you do, is to have those philosophers and computer scientists in the same room. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join us for Responsible AI in Action again. And really, just for the work that you're doing, I'm so happy that there's someone who is thinking about the really important questions when it comes to developing AI, because that's going to lay the foundation and the groundwork for many years to come in how this AI is developed and implemented. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, I'm doing my part. So again, all of the other colleagues out there, everyone who is thinking and working on these issues, really everybody's expertise matter because the question is huge and it has so many different moving parts. It's good to be a part of the larger ecosystem of people who are thinking and working for solutions.
Before we head out, I'm wondering if you could just share with our listeners where they could find out more information about you and all the great work that you're doing.
So there are two places. One is the AI Ethics Lab. So it is aiethicslab.com. You can find most of the things that I do there, most of the things that the lab does there. And the other place is my academic job, Northeastern. So that would be ai.northeastern.edu. And there you would find the Institute for Experiential AI. And you'll see that in the Institute, Responsible AI is at the core. So go look at the page, you'll find me.
Wonderful. Well, I'll make sure to include the links to those various resources in our show description. So for all of our viewers out there, all you have to do is scroll down and click those various resources provided. Cansu, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you, Patrick.